Before getting into the event, I want you all to get to know what Xaphal is. So I am Riddhi, your host, and Xaphal is a career guidance platform that helps you succeed in early stages of your career. So it helps you explore career paths, get counseling and mentoring, and collaborate with like-minded people. Okay, so LinkedIn has been all over now, and we all strive to stand out on the platform. But let's be honest, not many are able to do that. So, making a professional brand on LinkedIn is no easy task. And to help us with that, we have a very special guest today here. So, please allow me to introduce you to Ritika Saraswat. Coming from a non traditional educational background, Ritika had to work tirelessly to secure opportunities. Despite the challenges, she remained determined to work in the top consulting companies and now work as a business analyst at Deloitte, which is amazing. And she has worked with multiple startups. She has founded Redefined and has mentored over 1,000 students. So, hello, Ritika. Welcome to the festival. And we are very excited to have you here today. So, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Riddhi, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, first of all. I really appreciate you taking out the time. If you can switch on your cameras, if you're okay with it, I would love to kind of have to see everyone visually and connect, because I think, in this online world, it's always nice to kind of have that facial interaction. But if not, that's completely fine. So a bit about me. I'm originally from India, Pune, to be very precise. I came to Canada about 6 years ago. Came here as an international student, or like a classic South Asian kid wanting to become a doctor and change the world, because that's how my parents told me I could change the world. But just kind of kept myself open to trying different opportunities, and that's when I found the business side of things. It started with me filling in for my friend for a case competition, to then me becoming a freelance consultant. I worked in that space for 2 years for a lot of startups and nonprofits in Canada and in the US. And then I think once I got that experience, I also worked for 2 years in the higher education space, where I helped universities design mentorship programs for international students. And while I was doing that, I just realized a gap that exists in the educational market, whereby they're not necessarily building us for the real world. It's more of just the academic knowledge, which I think over time you just realize is not always needed unless you want to become a doctor or an engineer, etc. So I feel like that's when I started Redefined, because I realized that knowledge gap. Secondly, being a woman of color and being someone in a foreign land as an international student who maybe did not come from the most well-off families and had to struggle financially as well, I just figured to create a space where we can really empower students to not limit their capabilities and potentials and not sacrifice their long-term goals for short-term needs. So that's when Redefined was born, which was about a year ago. And we started with like one city in Canada, which was Vancouver. We had expanded to 3 cities here and 4 countries, where we work to give back to the underprivileged and the underserved communities. And in terms of the number, in overall, we have impacted more than 20,000 people and 10,000 students, to be precise, in the last year, which has been a combination of like 60% international students and 40% students from India, Africa, and a few Southeast Asian countries as well. So yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So, like, wow, I mean, it's really overwhelming, like when you are a woman of color, just picking words from what you said. So, like, we at India are all very proud of you for what you are doing. And it's amazing. And especially when we see women on the field and they are like fighting for a change, and we all thrive for that.
Yeah.
So do you think that it has been kind of unfair when you come from a South Asian background? Do the stigma still exist there? So if you want to just tell something about that.
Yeah, I would say it's like, it depends, right? What country do you go to? I think on average, I would say Canada is a lot more inclusive and diverse as compared to, let's say, the US as an example. You will have less racist experiences, but I wouldn't say you won't have any. Because I think there are different types of people who are always going to exist, right? You cannot really choose for that. I think what you can really control is how you react to things at the end of the day. So I feel like it's never really about the external environment as much as it's about you. So I think, I've had my fair share of good and bad instances. Like the first time when I came to Canada, my first year of university, someone asked me, like, how do you speak English? Aren't you from India? And I was like,
that's offensive.
I was like, don't you know Britishers call me Ritika? colonized us for the longest time. So obviously we know how to speak in English, so I think something like that, where there have been times where I have been given, whether it be opportunities to be on a big stage or be given awarded certain things, both within my organization, like within Deloitte, and even outside, just like maybe because I was a woman of color who was pursuing leadership in certain roles. So I think it goes both ways. So I think it's just for you to figure out what way you want to take it in and how do you want to leverage that opportunity in.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you talked about Redefine, right? Which is your like it's sort of an NGO helping people.
Yeah.
So like what is the future goal of Redefined, and like what vision do you have with it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I would say that's a good question. Yesterday also I was in a call, someone asked me the same thing. I would say the future goal of Redefined would be hopefully to create a space where when any international student, whenever they come to Canada, they feel fully prepared and confident to kind of take opportunities that they want and that they deserve. Because I think what happens is sometimes in short-term needs, like not even if you're an international student, even if you're, let's say, based in India right now, sometimes in our short-term needs, let's say, which mostly are financial needs, we give into positions or roles even which we are overqualified for at times because there's just so much of a need for it. But I think what happens over time is your mindset changes with your surroundings. If you're constantly imagine working in a pizza place, I worked at a pizza place like for 2 years while I was an international student to fund myself financially. While I was working, your mindset changes because people around you make you feel like that is what your capabilities are limited to, but that's not the reality, right? So I think it's important to maintain a balance and realize when it's the right time to move on or change things. So like I did prioritize my financial needs, but I knew that hey, if I want to achieve that goal of whatever my goal was for me, or if I want to achieve success in whatever way you define success as, I need to be able to be in an environment and space where I'm growing, I'm learning things that I want to learn. So I'm just hoping is that students just get the skill sets, they're able to get experiences that help them feel that confident and realize that hey, I don't have to just keep working here just because I want a PR, right? I am capable of a lot more. So I think that's where self-advocacy and personal branding, like our topic for today, also ties in, is because personal branding is not just about posting on LinkedIn or social media. Personal branding is also about advocating for yourself. And advocating for yourself doesn't just happen online, right? It happens in person on a day-to-day basis. When you're going to college, when you're going to university, when you're going to school, when you're talking to your professors, when you're talking to your students, what are things about yourself that they remember? I always tell people to think about this one thing. Whenever you leave a room, what is something someone thinks about you? At networking events, many a times, the way people will introduce themselves is like, hi, my name is so and so, I study at so and so university, and that's it. Never really emphasizing what skill sets do I have. And if you ask them what experience do you have, they're like, I don't have any experience, I'm just a student. But that's not true, right? Because now when the person leaves that room, I don't think any particular things. I maybe will just remember, oh, that person wore a white shirt, etc. But if you want someone to think of you as, oh, that person was highly driven, they have so much experience, so much passion, you need to get that, right? So a great way to introduce yourself, always I say, is like, obviously definitely make eye contact, always move in for a shake hand, is because you're creating an impression, and so now when that person leaves the room, they remember, let's say, like they remember Vridhi for someone, let's say, who is working with X Factor, who has graduated from this university, and while she was in university, she participated in clubs, she got the experience that she could at that point, right? So I think that is where self-advocacy also ties in.
So it's like, it's all about leaving the impact in the room that you are in. And
exactly.
You don't have to have a very big work ex or very high skills. You can just, like, from day-to-day life, you can pick up what you do and explain that to people.
Yeah, and that is what it is. I'll tell you very clear, very honestly, like very real conversation is like any resumes and cover letters you see, they're just fancy ways of saying the most basic things in reality. I just giving you an example. Like, let's say if someone worked at a retail store, let's say someone works at H&M as a salesperson at retail sales. If they just say retail sales, oh, it doesn't sound that great, right? But if they say like, I'm a retail consultant or like a personal retail assistant, that just makes it sound a lot more fancier. If I'm to say I'm a marketing manager versus if I'm to say I'm a marketing consultant or a marketing analyst, it just sounds a lot better, right? And people actually, you won't realize, but a lot of people go by how things sound as well. So personal branding, I think, is all about talking about what you're doing and just adding flavor to it. I think very simply put it as that. So, like whether it be you're participating in university, that's experience, right? Doesn't matter if it's paid, unpaid. As long as
Right.
you're creating an impact within that organization, leveraging skill sets, you are getting an experience. So all
Right.
you have to do is advocate that experience. You don't need to emphasize, oh, that's an unpaid experience. It's just as I'm in university, right? Be confident about it. Yes, I'm in second year of university. This is the work I have been doing, and I want to do more of this in the next few years as well. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned like you worked at a pizza place for 2 years, and I think you were doing a lot of part-time jobs when you were
Yeah.
studying. So when you left your part-time job, you had no backup, right? If I'm right.
No. Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So like what made you make that tough decision? I mean, what message you have for people who want to get out of a certain situation, but they are too
Yeah.
afraid and they are holding themselves back?
Yeah, I think like, see, like there's a balance. I cannot, sometimes your financial situation may never allow you to be able to take that risk, but I feel like that's where you understand when can I actually take that risk. So let's say initially I knew I wasn't in a capacity to take the risk, which is why I even worked for 2 years in that place. Despite it being toxic in many ways, I could have just left it, but I did not have the flexibility to do so. So what I started doing is I started saving up, and when I thought I had the flexibility enough that, okay, if I leave this job today, I have at least, let's say, a period of 1 month for myself where I can figure out what other thing I want to do and really build that brand for myself and find a job that is the best fit for me and that I deserve, or the job that deserves me in a way. I think just figuring out that balance for you. So I would never say that, if you don't have the money to bring food home, in that case, prioritize finances, obviously. Do what
Obviously.
it takes. Obviously, you need to have a roof over your head and everything, but once you're able to satisfy that, and once you think you even have a little bit of leverage of like a month or so, leave, find something that works better. But before doing that step of leaving anything, it's important to assess for yourself, have I gained the skills that I need to get a better job opportunities? So while I was
Right.
doing those multiple part-time jobs, obviously I had to satisfy my finances, but I had to satisfy my skill sets and experiences also, right? So the only way I could do that is by working incredibly long hours, because I was doing 2 part-time jobs and I was doing 2 internships, one online and one in person. Because obviously, like if I have a goal, okay, in the next 4 months I want to land a job and I want to leave these jobs, I need to keep building finances, but at the same time I have to build that experience so that when I apply to the job, no one tells me, hey, you don't have experience in the first place, and B, you don't have Canadian relevant experience, which is what you need. So I feel like doing a combination of the two, and once I felt confident that I have what it takes, you can convince anyone else. So when I had that confidence, that's when I left it and then I applied. So I would say, like, assess for yourself. Don't do it if you are not confident yet about it. Yeah.
So like when you took that decision of just leaving your job, so like what were your next steps? What did you started doing?
Networking. Key. Like even while I was doing the job. Yes, correct, Tanmay. I think like even whether it be, sorry, what was the question? I forgot when I looked at the comment.
I was yeah, no problem. I was asking, like, when you left the job, then what steps did you started doing?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, sorry, it's like it's networking main for me. It's always been that. Like even while I was in the job, I was always networking. Even with the customers who were coming in, I used to network. I used to ask everyone, while I'm having why not optimize, right, wherever you're at. I used to build my contacts like that. Like also one more thing I would say is, before I get into is, like, no matter what job you're working for, reflect to analyze what is something you do very differently compared to anyone else. In that pizza place, there were at least so many cashiers who used to work, but there was something different I did. I started realizing that I had that good relationship with customers compared to anyone else in that room. So I started realizing maybe that's my strength, and that is what I even use to land corporate jobs in the future, right? Maybe that relationship building piece, the way I communicate with people, maybe that is different, that is unique. So I need to leverage that. And you won't imagine, but I developed so many networks while working at the pizza place, who in fact I got future freelance job opportunities from.
Wow.
Because when I started reaching out to them, I connected with them on LinkedIn. Once I got to know their name, I used to ask them, hey, where do you work? Like my goal is to also work as a consultant, this and that. And they would tell me a bit about them. I would go back home, look them up on LinkedIn, draft a connection request, a personalized invite to them, and set up a coffee chat with them. Tell them that, hey, this is where I currently work, but these are the other things that I'm doing to get experience to eventually land this job. So they see is like, oh wow, this person is working hard for this. And if you
Right.
tell that, and if you're not embarrassed and ashamed of where you work, I think that is the big part as well. What happens sometimes is a lot of students feel embarrassed, especially even to talk back home, because in India, a lot of us don't necessarily work at pizza places or anything,
No.
right?
Yeah, you're
um,
right. You're right.
yeah, so a lot of people feel very embarrassed about it, but I never felt embarrassed. I was like, see, this is a part of the
Of
process.
course.
I'm eventually going to get where I want to be, but this is a part that I have to fulfill. Like, I could sit and get money from my parents, but I wanted to become independent, right? So I think it's like,
Right.
choose what your priority is and know that there'll be other things that will be sacrificed. So if your priority was to become independent, that may come by hearing things from your relatives back home in India, what you're doing with their future. So, as long as you have your goal clear and you have tunnel vision, oh, you can achieve whatever you want, and
Right.
don't bother about the others.
So I guess this sends a very loud message to all the introverts that you have to step out of a comfort zone
Yeah.
and like create connections, because rest, it can be really, I think people also feel very awkward when like coming up front to the people, but there is where you need to build your own confidence, and
Yeah.
you have to like think about yourself. I think you have to be
And I
selfish
think it's
there.
not just about awkward, Vidhi. I think it's about people feel very intimidated at times, because when people are
Yeah.
connecting with others, like even in a coffee, usually who are you reaching out to? You usually going to reach out to someone you look up to, right? And when you're
Right.
looking up to someone, you get intimidated sometimes when you're in a conversation with them, because you're like, oh my god, they have so much experience, I have nothing to bring to the table,
Yeah.
right? I've had students who feel like that one in the call, but I was like, I was there just a year ago, right? What
Hmm.
makes me different than you, right? It's kind of the
Yeah.
same thing. So I think whenever you even reach out to someone, please context always. Check how many years ago did that person start. Like sometimes on LinkedIn, you may see someone having 150,000 followers, and you're like, oh my God, incredible. But what if that person
Yeah.
has been on that platform 5 years or 6 years, and
Right.
this is your
Of
first month?
course.
Obviously, right, they also started
Yeah.
at that stage. So I think if you think of it that way also, it reduces the intimidation, because you're like, okay, this person was exactly where I was a few years ago. And in fact, it helps you convert intimidation into inspiration, because you're like, okay, if
Right.
they could do it, I definitely can do it. So I think it's more about to shift that mindset. If you shift
Yeah.
the way you look at things, that itself can help you succeed a lot more. Because when you get intimidation, anxiety, stress, etc., that
Hmm.
can lead you to become demotivated and stop putting in effort, because you're like, why should I try? I will fail either
Yeah.
ways, right?
Like we
But
all think we are not good enough.
exactly. But if you take
Yeah.
it as inspiration, you're like, you know what, they could do it, let me learn from them how they did it, so that even I can do it
Yeah.
for myself. Yeah.
So like speaking of LinkedIn and how you like
Yeah.
used to send connections and everything, what's your
Yeah.
take on like leveraging LinkedIn for jobs? What do you think
Yes,
about that?
I think absolutely important. I think a
Mm.
great way to start, though, I would say, is like creating that brand for yourself on LinkedIn first. This doesn't just have to come from you posting repetitively on LinkedIn, because I'll tell you today, the job market is changing, especially if your goal is, let's say, to come in the North American job market. Even back in India, a lot of things work through connections, right? So I
Right.
think that developing of that network is important either ways. I was just talking to someone back before this for collaborations we want to set up in India, and they said you need to
Okay.
know someone in a school to then say, oh, I spoke to Hitesh, who then recommended
Okay.
your
Yeah.
name, and then
No,
they're
yeah,
likely
that
to listen to you,
happens.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the only way you can do that is networking. So even for a job that applies, most students who reach out to me or sign up for sessions with me, they'll always be like, Ritika, I'm not getting a job. I said, okay, what does your job process look like? You know what they'll say? I go online, I submit the resume, and sometimes I don't even submit cover letter if it doesn't ask for it, and that's it. That is what
Okay.
thousands of people are doing, right? What
Yeah,
makes you
you have
different?
to stand out.
Yeah, now you're just a number of an applicant. You're just a number on the application list for a recruiter. But if you want to attach a face to that number, a personality to that number, the only way you can do
Yeah.
that is through networking. So apply for jobs on LinkedIn, but at the same time, do your branding thing and your network thing. And it's not limited to just landing jobs. I think the biggest part is also once you get a job, then I did not realize this
Okay.
before, but LinkedIn helped me not just land a job, but at the same time, when I joined my company, you'll be surprised, is like, because I did a lot of that networking or personal branding, the day I joined, people already knew who I was.
Wow.
So like, and even I made sure that I do that, right? Because that was my personal goal. I made sure I
Yeah.
network with almost every single person in this office. so that when I come into office, people know who I am, people know what my personality is, people know what my values are. So let's say social impact is very personal to me, just 4 months joining the firm, I won the community change maker impact award. I was selected as one out of the two people from the entire Canadian offices as a woman of color, the only woman of color to actually represent Deloitte Canada in Ireland. Why did all of that happen? But like, see, like, I'm not saying that to boast, but I'm saying that to,
No,
like, that
obviously.
would not happen if I did not talk to people or create that brand around who I am, what I value, right? Otherwise, people will always believe in the hierarchy. They'll be like, oh, you're just a BA, right? Because that's the most entry level role. But I think move beyond that. It doesn't matter what role you're at. I always, I'm pretty upfront to even a lot of my seniors, that even if I join in as a BA, I think I have the capability of, being much higher. And I think that's what students should know. And once you know that, people will see that, right? And you're going to face a lot of resistance. I as do, especially being, I'm the only person of color in my entire office. So when you face that, you do face a lot of like barriers as well, right? Like it's not as easy. And yeah, there's a lot of resistance, but it's about, at the end of the day, is, if you keep doing good work, if you're getting things, people are going to come automatically because you are succeeding in their definition of success. So I think, I always say is like, just work hard and have like a tunnel vision and ignore the others.
I think it's also like, if you start making connection early, and like when you go to the office, you already know everyone, you just skip that awkward new employee phase.
Exactly.
And people start sharing their stuff with you, and you get to learn a lot more in the office.
I know, that's where like networking comes into play. Just one quick point I'll say is like,
Yeah.
what I did was I moved cities, right, for my job. So I moved from Vancouver, where I was for 4 years. I moved to Halifax then, complete East Coast. Now it's a new city. I know no one there. What I did was, when I came into the new city, I set up in-person coffee chats with a few of the employees working at the company. So what happened with these in-person coffee chats, these coffee chats were usually happening just below office at the cafes and other places. And two of them said, hey, why don't I show you the office before you join? I was like, great. So now what happened is, even before joining office officially, I got a month before, I got the opportunity to even see the office from inside, feel comfortable with the space. And when they got me into office, I was able to bump into a few people in the office, one of whom was the main partner at the office as well. So even before I joined, I already had that interaction with them. I even got onto an opportunity immediately that same day, because I met someone who was talking about something impact, and I was like, hey, I've been in this space so many years. I did not leave that opportunity to advocate again. It was my first day in office. I still hadn't joined the firm as well, but I still made sure, okay, if they asked about this, I was like, okay, I can help because I have this and this to offer. And as soon as I joined a month later, I was automatically enrolled into it, without any delay. So I feel like it's like, optimize every opportunity you get. Don't leave it.
Yeah. Eyes open, ears open. That's what we want. So, okay, like a big part of building our personal brand on LinkedIn is like posting regularly, because like algorithm and everything comes into play. But I think for many people, it can be tough task, like what to post and what inspiration you get. And there can be a phases of mental blocks. So how do you deal with that?
That's a very good question. I still experience that. So I 100% relate to it. I think one main important thing I would say to that is like, it's like, be yourself, very honestly. There's this one big creator. I think she's doing amazing. There are so many amazing creators from India, first of all, always looking for inspiration from them. I forgot her name, Sahil Chadreja, something like that. She's a woman creator on LinkedIn. Oh my God, I've butchered her name, but she's a woman creator on LinkedIn. She's one of the top 45 in the world creators. And if you see her content, in one of her recent posts, she said that, what makes her content different, because see, there are so many people on LinkedIn today, and I'll tell you honestly, everyone's posting the similar content, but just in different ways. Very honestly, go across it. It's so tricky, but the only thing that's going to make you different than anyone else is just being yourself, because your personality is something no one else has. The way you talk to someone, the way you talk to your friends may be very different compared to how anyone else talks to their friends, right? So I think it's all about, yes, correct, it's Saheli, whoever said that, correct. It's all about how you talk to people around you, right? So I think it's just like, leverage that. And I think it's a lot of self-reflection. It sounds very philosophical, but it's actually a lot of self-reflection to realize, okay, what is something unique and different about me? It can be the simplest things. How do I cut my apples? Like very simple as that, I'm saying as an example. Is there something different about that? Because those things definitely tie up to some of a bigger characteristic which you have is different than anyone else. And I think
Right.
hone in on that when you realize that. So even like now on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
like I have started realizing it's so difficult because it's got so saturated, especially like from an India's perspective. You have, I think, more than 85% of the users on LinkedIn are like from India. And if you see the
Yeah.
content is so similar, so I think the way you write the content is what differentiates you from someone else, not necessarily what you're writing, because what you're writing is actually very common knowledge now. It's just the way you explain it or put it out there that's going to resonate with the audience. So I think keeping that in mind, and second is consistency is key to everything. I think even succeeding in life in general, and even for LinkedIn is key.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean you have to post every single day, right? Find the balance for you. If you think you're someone initially, you cannot create content every single day. Let's say I always say start with 3 days a week, right? But make sure you
Okay.
post every week during those 3 days only and during that exact time. So if you're posting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 10 a.m. IST, make sure you're doing that for every single week after that as well. And if
Okay.
you want, you can increase, but never go down. So if you want, post one post in 2 days, but never
Okay.
post zero post in 2 days then, because then you disturb
Okay.
the algorithm. So you can go up, but never go down.
So like it's not related to this topic, but it just came into my
Yeah.
mind right now when I was reaching out to you on LinkedIn and I saw your
Yeah.
profile. There's this one thing that I realized that people have stopped clicking pictures and sharing their small achievements. Like you left the pizza place, you posted it, you got into office, we get new
Yeah.
merch in the office. We don't post it because we don't value that small moments. I
Yeah.
think just having them clicking pictures and going on LinkedIn very, very like transparent, I think it's gonna play a good role, I guess.
Yeah, and like I'll tell you, like right now the LinkedIn algorithm is shifting towards videos. So you might have seen a lot of
Okay.
creators have now started incorporating reels
Yeah.
that they post on
Yeah.
Instagram on this. It is kind of making the job easier as well because Instagram purely runs like success rate is purely through reels, right? So now you can just
Hmm.
repurpose that on LinkedIn. So I feel like slowly start making those shifts and understanding how the people are like the algorithm is changing, right? And there are two ways. One is you either go along with the influence of the algorithm or you influence the algorithm. And how you can
Oh,
do that is through the community you personally have. When I
yeah.
actually started posting on LinkedIn about a year ago, I can tell you very honestly, no one used to post about failures at that point.
Hmm.
People used to only post about their successes, achievements. Oh, I did this, I did that. And I remember being a student as well. When I was going through it, I had no experience there. I used to feel so intimidated. I should just close the platform. And like I was never active. I just came on LinkedIn a year ago. I was so late also to it. And a lot of I was fine when it happened to me, but then I started seeing a lot of my friends were having a lot of like mental health impacts as well. People getting stressed,
Hmm.
just feeling like burnt out just by seeing what all is happening in the world. But then it's like social media in general. Like that's why I didn't like Instagram always, because people just posted about the good side of things, the good side of their life. But
Yeah.
whenever
True.
I make a post, I always think is like, okay, if there's someone else who hasn't had a great day today, how are they going to feel when they see this post? I don't want them to feel discouraged, which
Right.
is why even when I share an achievement post, I might always mention how I got that achievement sometimes. And sometimes
Yeah.
emphasizing that may not actually get you good viewership, but I still do it because for me at the end of the day, yes, viewership is important, but what is more important is how people feel when they see that post. So I'm fine
Yeah.
with less likes and less viewage if that makes it a lengthier post, but I'm okay with it because the goal
Right.
is that. So I think it's all about like maintaining that balance and identifying priorities for yourself also. Yeah.
So, like you said, like people from Instagram are coming onto the LinkedIn now, but the
Yeah.
content on Instagram is, I think, purely different, and it's not professional per se.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn has been seen as something where people just post their professional
Yeah.
things, like their professional achievements, their new job roles, and everything. So, how do you balance that content?
So I
Like,
think it's changing now. So it
okay.
depends, right? It's like what kind of content do you post on Instagram? It depends on that. I know a few creators on LinkedIn who necessarily won't use their Instagram to post educational or entertainment content. It's more so like general Instagram usage, like, posting your pictures of a trip you went to,
Yeah.
etc. But I know there are other creators who use their Instagram also as like a content creation platform. So they'll be
Right.
posting about 5 tips on how to grow on LinkedIn, this and that. I am also posting those kind of things, right? Initially,
Correct.
mine was also regular Instagram, but then I shifted towards, why not educate people wherever you can? And it's not even educating me, just sharing my experience, right? So I started posting those roles on my Instagram as well. So many a times, what I may post in video format on my Instagram, I may leverage that in a written format on LinkedIn, because I feel like reels haven't started taking off yet as much on LinkedIn. So I still prefer to do the written format, but I think eventually it is going to shift to that. That's why right now the heavy focus is on pictures, and pictures of yourself more. That will do better, because people want to see a face. People want to connect with you, right? That's why they, like, you'll always get more likes if it's a picture of you and, let's say, a certificate you got, versus if it's just a picture of a certificate. So I think it's like, because of the online world, people are just so tired of just looking at a screen and talking. So at least if they can see a face, they resonate with it. So I think, just that. I don't know if I answered your question right.
No, you did. So I have few more questions, but before that, I would just like for our audience to tell them the chat box is open for everyone, and you can drop in your questions so Ritika can take those.
Yeah.
And we
And
will
y'all
have
can
a
also like unmute yourself. Like if you have like a question that you want to say out loud, now is the time to self-advocate, right? Get out of your comfort zone. So only
so
if anyone wants to. Yeah.
Audience, just put in up your questions and Ritika will take it. So I'll just move on and ask like, what's your take on like, how does small business grow on LinkedIn? How has LinkedIn helped small businesses?
I think when it comes to like small business or any business or entrepreneurship venture in general, I think it's about, first, I think it starts with your personal brand as well. It depends what kind of a startup you are in, right? If it's a startup that is associated to your personal brand, I think that's when having that personal story and having that personal brand for yourself becomes important. Like, for example, my organization Redefine is very much related to international students. But how did it come into being? It came into being because of my personal experiences of experiencing that both directly and indirectly, right? So in that case, what proved to be important for me is to also have a strong personal brand for myself, and then be able to tell people, hey, the way I came out of this was by leveraging these other things which you can find here. So I think I had to do a combination of that personal branding and also then the branding for the organization as well, because depending on what type of organization you have, if your face is the if your face is what comes up when people think of Redefined, then you need to have a strong personal brand in that case. But if it's not the case like that, then it's completely fine, right? Then that's when you start prioritizing your organizational brand. And your organizational brand building is very similar to a personal brand. The only difference is now instead of one person, it's multiple people together, right? So this is where your focus should be on, okay, what are the major ideas, what's kind of the vision, mission of an organization. People want to connect with it, right? So share those personal stories, get it out there. And it's similar to personal branding, make sure you're posting consistently also. Most of the organizational pages, if you see, they always have less viewers than personal pages. Like they might have, let's say, even 2,000 followers, but they'll have 2-3 likes or something like that. Even our Redefined page has about, I think, like 1,000-2,000 followers, but if you see, the viewers will be very less, even though people resonate to that content. It's always like that. But that's where consistency comes into play. If you are someone who even posts every single day on your organizational page, how you would at a personal page, then you will get amazing viewers through that page as well. So I think it's the same philosophy. And it's just about keeping things like, that consistency part in mind, making sure you are maintaining a balance when you put out content, making sure you're being inclusive also about the terminologies you use from an organizational perspective, especially because now you're not catering to one type of audience or one type of community, right? You're catering to a host of people. So you want to make sure your terminologies are also more open and you understand your audience, your target group. With a personal brand, it's easier to identify the target audience because it grows naturally over time. But when you are so open to a lot of communities and organizations being a part of you, it becomes difficult to target what audience it is specifically. Like, is it South Asians? Is it everyone? Is it international students? Is it immigrants overall? And then I think accordingly fuel your content. So I would say it's a mix of both. And networking, building collaborations for small businesses, that happened also through LinkedIn. Redefined operated for a year till now, we have never taken any funding. We have never taken any grants, nothing at all. But the only way we have been able to run our organization or anything is through collaborations we built. If let's say we want to conduct a drive for the homeless community and we want to give out clothes, we connect with or let's say food as an example. We, through LinkedIn, we connected with food banks in Canada who were willing to provide us food for free, which we could then distribute to the homeless community. So now without spending, we got that. When we wanted clothing, we collaborated with the thrift stores that we were able to come across on LinkedIn and through them find things. Then in some cases, if we need funding, there are so many venture capitalists and so many people on LinkedIn. If you resonate to them and their story and your story connects with them, they would be willing to make donations to you, right? Like even if it's $100, $200 per month, there you're getting people. So I think that way also it's very helpful.
Right. Yeah. So like I guess like LinkedIn has been a major part for the Redefine's journey and your journey too. So I think we can take up the audience questions now.
Yeah.
So should I just speak them out loud or
I can
how should we do it? Okay.
Nishant sir, I want to start my journey with LinkedIn. So shall I go with adding my past achievements in order and then go with the current ones? How should I go with LinkedIn for it to be better with it? I think, thank you for the question, Nishant. I would say the first thing to maybe start with is experiences. I think it's an important section to fill out, but I think what's more important is the about me section and even your headline at the top. The reason I say that is because whenever people are looking for people to connect with, the only thing that they initially see is the headline, especially when you're on a phone as well, or if you're on your laptop. So you want to make sure your headline is something that is catchy and that is telling people about things you want them to know about, whether it be that you're looking for a job, whether it be that you are a DEI enthusiast, whether it be you're an SDG activist, whatever it is. Put those things in the headline so that you can attract people, employers, etc. through that. Secondly is when you start forming your profile itself, it'll ask you to use hashtags. So be very careful of those hashtags that you used because they play a role in your SEO, right? Like the search engine optimization for your profile. So figure out what are themes that are specific to you or that resonate to you and leverage those in those hashtags. So I would say that would be the first thing to look into. Second then would be and always have a picture, please. Don't have it without a picture. Then it seems like a scam account and it seems fishy as well. So I think always have that also. And like when I say like, you don't need to always have a professional picture. People think it needs to be in a suit, tie, everything. No, it could just be like a picture that reflects your personality, which is still professional, but also has a balance of your personality in it, so I think choosing a picture like that. So I would say picture and headline first. Second priority would be the about me section. Now the about me, the reason I say about me section even more than experience is because see, most people are going to have experience. What differentiates you from someone else, again, as I mentioned, is your personal values, your personal beliefs, your personal passions, and what have you done about those, right? And the only way you can talk about those is in your about me section. You can even tell your story to people, who you are, where are you originally from. I always, whenever I even meet people, I always make an introduction saying, hey, my name's Ritika, I'm a first generation immigrant in Canada. The reason I say that is because that has an impact that leaves you feeling different than anyone else who's introducing themselves. Because even if you have international students, they rarely introduce themselves like that. But I always do because it leaves an impression on the other person. So, like leveraging that in your about me section. And I think after that, the third thing would then be is your experience section. And then putting in any volunteer experience also. You have any achievements, awards, etc. you have won as well, putting those in. I even put my awards and achievements in my about me section too. So I think that is the way you can go about prioritizing. And as for experience, one last thing I would say is prioritize your experience as well. You don't need to put everything in. Depending on the type of job you're looking for, the type of roles and opportunities you're looking for, prioritize those type of experiences, because it's not always about quantity. You can have many, but if it distracts an employer that, okay, she has just been trying too many different things, they don't get an idea what exactly you're interested in, right? So I think have an aim in terms of what industry or space you really want to get into and accordingly prioritize. Then I think OnePlus said, I just search some people on LinkedIn and add them as my connection to increase my followers. And maybe if I need their help in the future, am I doing this right? Okay. Yes, I would definitely say don't just increase your followers. It depends, right? What's your goal? If your purpose is just to increase your following, then maybe you can do how people even do on Instagram. Just follow a lot of people expecting they'll follow you back. But I feel like another great way is like if you want to develop networks and develop relationships with people on that platform, I think the best way is always to send a personalized invite as well. You can just send like a connect like that, and people will definitely accept the connect, but don't expect them to respond to your message if you do message them. So I feel like if you want to actually engage in that kind of connection, then I think the first step would be always putting in a personalized invite when you are sending a message or sending a connection request to anyone, because that adds its personal touch, right? The name also says personalized invite. So I think that's why it's so important. And I think second step is whenever, let's say, that person does accept your connection request, always message them first. Your personalized invite will always show up, but always follow up, right? See, it's not about someone doesn't care about you or something, but people are busy. So, even if they accept your connection request and even though your invite is there, they may not get the time to see it. So the good way to remind people is by following up with them. Hi, my name is so and so. I connected with you like a few days ago. Thank you so much for connecting with me. I would love to set up a call with you. Wondering if you got the opportunity to see my message above. Something like that. Just follow up very simply with people. And you might have to do it a couple of times if people are incredibly busy, and that's okay, right? Keep your ego down, I would say, in this. Keep reaching out, and obviously know the balance. Don't do it every single day. Follow up at a particular pattern, right? Like, let's say maybe after like a week or 5 days, if they still haven't responded, that's when you can reach out again. You can be like, oh, I understand you're really busy, let me know what week or what month works for you. So you're kind of progressing the conversation with every message you're sending, but at the same time you're being consistent from your side. I have sometimes got so annoyed by some people who have been so consistent, but then I have to eventually hop on a call with them because I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's just do this. So even though initially I'm saying like that is more extreme whereby they followed up too much, but I'm saying even though that's the case, see, it works in some ways, because when you really get too annoyed, you're like, you know what, let's just hop on a call and get this done with. So that person did at the end get their call done, versus the others who maybe give following up after 2 times, they never end up getting a call with that person. So I think it's like assess for yourself how the other person is and then maintain a balance. When making
So
connections
I
on LinkedIn.
just want
Yeah.
to add to this question, like how do you message someone, which is I think Isha's question also, like how do you message someone and you don't come out too strong? Like it
So that they can accept a request. Not come on too strong. I would say like, as far as like for like, I think Riddhi you paused for us, but can everyone else? Am I paused or is
Hello.
everyone else paused? Oh yes, you just paused for a couple of times. It's fine.
Okay.
Now you're
Okay,
back.
sorry.
No, but I read your but I understood your question. So I would say like to not come across too strong. I think that is actually tricky because you don't know how the other person is. So I feel like one balance I always say to students, especially let's say from a job search perspective, is don't reach out saying that, hi, I'm looking for a job. I see you're working at Deloitte. Would love to connect. Because what that does is it leaves the other person feeling like they're being used. Like I have felt that so many times, like from a lot of students who reach out, and the main purpose is just to get a referral from you or something like that, right? Your first, I think, request should always be something general, like yet specific to them. So something like would be like, hi, my name is so and so, I'm currently studying here, I'm really passionate about, let's say, consulting, for example, and I see that you have been working at this company for the last 5 years. Would love to connect to learn from your experience. Simple and sweet, but yet specific, because you have mentioned the specific company they're working at and how many years they've been working there. And they know that that is something that cannot be duplicated for every single person. So that makes the person feel, okay, this request is personalized, but at the same time, it's not too strong. So I think that's a good way to start. And then Anushka asked, yeah.
No, I was just saying about Anushka's question.
What are the things according to you that are a big no when it comes to branding? I wouldn't say there's anything like a big no when it comes to like branding for yourself. Just be yourself, I would say. But in terms of what's a big yes is interact with other people's posts as well. Engagement is also a big key. Growing on LinkedIn isn't just about, and even personal branding, it is not just about posting on your own page. I made that mistake for the longest time. It's also about engaging. It's a balance between the two. Don't do one also only, but it's also about engaging with other people's content. Let's say if someone shared something about, let's say you're an engineer. If someone says something relating to engineering, what you could do is, even if you're not posting on your personal profile, just going to that post and commenting your perspective on it. Obviously, like one thing to keep in mind is like be respectful of others' opinions. Don't use harsh language or language that's not respectful, but share your perspectives on things, right? And you won't imagine, I recently met someone who I recommended them to start engaging. They went from 1,000 followers without posting any content on LinkedIn. Bear in mind, they went from 1,000 followers to about 5,000 followers in 3 weeks. Insane, right? Like I myself haven't done that. But why that happened was because once I told them engage with content, they just went overboard with engaging content. And that is, you have to be strategic with that. If you're someone, let's say if your goal is to just grow on LinkedIn initially, which is important, I understand, and later on you can develop the brand, just start engaging with people's content. Find people who are the bigger influencers or creators in LinkedIn and write good perspective, like a hefty comment or perspective. And depending on the people you want to connect with or be like, or people whose community you want to be in, comment according to that. So let's say if there's someone you identify in the financial investment space, you want to become a creator in the future in financial investment, identify all the financial investment creators, tag the creators who you really want to, let's say, collaborate with in the future or learn from as well. Be the first person to comment on every of their posts, and don't just leave a comment saying loved it, amazing, congratulations, or like an in-depth post sharing your perspective, taking their posting into account and everything. I have that person who I'm talking about, I won't mention the name. His every comment on people's post used to be at least 2-3 paragraphs, like mini paragraphs, like
my God.
2-3 paragraphs. Imagine the amount of time that person's investing. But because they're investing their time without even posting content on their own profile, they're able to get so many followers. Because when people are seeing, and that's one of the easiest way actually to grow on LinkedIn, because you don't have to think of a new post, right? All you have to do is respond to someone else's post, but it involves a lot more time investment for sure. So I think that is another good thing also, because, and then you don't have to do it for everyone. Identify those 2-3 creators which have a great following, and where people also do engage with their content. So that way now those people who are engaging with them, let's say those 12,000 people, they're now seeing your posts as well. And if you're adding good value, they will automatically go and follow you as well. And once, let's say you've reached a certain standing of, let's say 1,000 followers to begin with, then start posting on your profile as well. So then start using a combination. But initially, if you haven't figured out what you want to post, then just start posting with the commenting, and then later on go into posting on a platform. Yeah.
So I think the conversation we had is like super amazing and insightful, and we can go on and on about this because you're so amazing. But we are running a little short on time, so sorry for the audience. Is there any other question you would like to answer that's really important for the session, or we can just wrap it up? You can just skim through it, I guess.
I think I might just address the last question on like Chetna's. How can I build a strong personal brand if I don't have work experience or accomplishments? As I mentioned before, Chetna, I'm sure you have experience. Have you been a part of a school? Have you been a part of a university? Was there any school group project that you did where you worked with a community, where you applied communication, problem solving, critical thinking, leadership opportunities, anything you may have done? Were you parts of a sports club? Or did you do any were you part of a basketball team or anything at all? Those all are experiences. So I feel like what's important is when you're starting out on LinkedIn, people are not necessarily, you may think so, but people are not necessarily always attracted to your achievements always. Initially, it starts with, it's a balance, right? Initially, start by creating a resonance of your story with them. And then you may have to eventually start posting about more accomplishments, but that comes later on, because first you need to develop that personal connection, and then you need to build trust with them. So first focus on building that personal connection with them by sharing your story. As simple as that. Like, let's say even if you are a person who lives in Pune today, who is a student, commutes every single day, you can start posting about your commute journey, the struggles you experience that way, or how have you been making it easier. Very like simple things from your life. Start with that, and then later on you'll figure it out. I think the best way is just start. Don't think too much, okay, how will I do this, how will I do that? Just start with the first post. I met someone that day, he was like, Ritika, I do not have much to share. I said, you had this conversation with me today, use this conversation as a great example for a post. Make a post today. Hey, I spoke to so and so, we spoke about this, and here is my first post introducing myself to LinkedIn. Here is my first post of coming out of my comfort zone and putting myself out there. And you can post a picture of yourself or a picture of the view or wherever you are currently. So use that. So many of you who are on this call today, if you want, the best way to start is make a post today about this like event that you attended. What exactly did you learn from this event? Share it with others, because people will find value in that. And that could honestly be what your content looks like. You just sharing briefs and summaries of what all you saw in every event. It does two things. You can tag me and the platform as well, and what that does is it gives you access to our network, but at the same time other people who are part of your network see value in your post now. So that's a great
Right.
way to start in itself. Yeah, I
So
would say
I
that's
think this has been an amazing session, and it was so great talking to you. And we all are taking a lot of things with us now, and we are, I think, wiser than we were before this session because of you. So see you guys. Bye bye. Thank you for your time.
yes, thank
Bye,
you.
Ritika.
Bye.
Bye.